You already know something like this. It doesn't just happen. Most people don't wake up and say, I'm going to betray somebody today that I really care about. That's not how this works. It starts quieter than that. Something feels off in your relationship. There's distance, there's tension, something unresolved. And instead of dealing with it, you carry it. You push it down. You tell yourself that it'll pass, but it doesn't. And let me be clear with you. This isn't about attacking you. This is about keeping you from walking into something that will cost you more than you think. Because most people who end up in that situation, they never thought they would. Most people didn't plan it, but they also didn't stop it when they felt the sparks developing. They didn't deal with what was in front of them when it was still small. Affairs, they don't start in the bedroom. They start in the mind and in the heart. And this applies across the board. This is universally true because the issue is integrity. It's not gender. See, affairs start when integrity begins to break down in small, unnoticed ways. It starts with emotional drift. You feel disconnected, so you start opening up to somebody else. And it usually goes like this. You met a guy or a gal at work. They seem so interesting, so engaging. They're giving you the attention that you feel like you deserve. And rather than stopping it, you leaned into it. A conversation that goes a little too far, a message that you wouldn't want your spouse to see, a touch that was more than just friendly. And instead of correcting it, you justify it. It's no big deal. We're just talking. It doesn't mean anything. But it does. Because let's be honest, at that point, you already know what you're doing. You know that conversation isn't clean. You know that message crosses a line. You know you wouldn't say those things if your spouse was standing right there in front of you. You know you shouldn't be spending that much time with that person, but you keep doing it anyway. Not because you don't understand, because you don't want to stop. And that's the part that people don't want to admit. It's not confusion, it's permission. You gave yourself permission to step in before anything physical ever happened. Something was going on here. And once you gave yourself permission, the rest became easier to justify because now that line, it's moved. And once that line moves once, it becomes easier to move it again. Then comes secrecy. Not because you're confused about what's right, but because you know what's happening. And by the time it becomes physical, you've already been walking in a direction for a while. Now let me be very, very direct with you, because most people miss this. Listen carefully. If you think this could never be you, that's the exact position that puts you at risk, because you stop paying attention. You stop guarding the small decisions. And that's where this actually lives. Not in a moment where everything falls apart, but in those little moments that lead up to it. And I want to say this to anyone out there who might have found out that their wife or their husband stepped out on them. If your spouse had an affair, that was their decision, not yours. So don't accept blame for a choice that you didn't make. But if you're involved in an affair, you've got to deal with this honestly. Where are things out of order right now? Right now. You've got to fix it now, not later. Is there a conversation that you've been avoiding? A boundary that you allowed to slide? An interaction that you know isn't clean? Because if you don't deal with it early, it doesn't stay small. It grows. It begins to snowball. It just gets bigger and bigger It's these little yeses that you make. You say yes to the time alone spent with them. You say yes to the private conversations. You say yes to the secrecy. It's a series of small yeses that leads to the big moment. And once you've gone down that path, it's not easy to turn around. Every decision you make to spend time with that person is making it more difficult to stop. So here's what you do. You bring things back in order now. You stop spending time with that person. You stop having personal conversations with that person. And you stop giving them your energy. You say what needs to be said, and you set the boundary. You shut down what shouldn't be there. You do it now, not later. Because you don't fall into betrayal. You walk there one decision at a time. And the truth is, you can stop that walk by fixing what's in front of you right now. Affairs, they don't start in a bedroom. They start when you decide to give your attention to someone else. You choose to do what's wrong in those moments. Those are decisions that you chose. And you can also choose to make the right decision and stop it.